Good morning.
Good morning.
If I can get out of this, we'll have a good morning. Glasses and masks don't go well together. I'm Gary Gray. I'm going to be your liturgist this morning. With me are our minister, Reverend Krista Taves, and our special guest, who you've already heard from, Maximus Amadeus Glamour, sometimes known as Maxi Glamour. And I think you can see why. Maxi is a drag performer, a composer, and a student at Webster University. Maxim, welcome to our congregation. It is our pleasure and honor to have you with us. Also joining me this morning is Carol Glazer, who is available for Sunday morning pastoral care. Carol, would you stand so people know you? Thank you. If you're visiting us for the first time today, either online, and I know you're out there somewhere, I'd love to see you, or with us in person, you are very welcome. We are very glad you've chosen to be with us. This is a beautiful fall morning, crisp and sunshiny. It's just wonderful, and we're glad you've chosen to be with us. If you're on site as a guest, you should have received a guest form. Please fill that out on both sides if you have children. And drop it in the offertory basket when that goes by. If you didn't happen to get one, you can get one from one of the greeters after the service. If you're visiting online, our guest form can be found on the first page of our website. It's in the upper right-hand corner. If you click that, then you can fill it out and let us know all about you. If you're with us here, please join us for coffee after service. It'll be in Adams Hall, which is out through these doors and then around to the left. And if you're with us online, you can get a link to our 12:30 coffee hour, Zoom coffee hour, by sending an email to welcome@eliotchapel.com. It's a joy to be together this morning. Eliot Chapel is a liberal religious community where we welcome all in the fullness of who you are. Whatever your race, whatever your religion, whatever your background, age, gender expression, ability, sexual orientation, you are welcome here. Some of our core values are love, equality, equity, justice, and transformations. In the Universalist tradition, we've already lighted our chalice. The bowl symbolizes that we have entered sacred space, and it represents our beloved community, and the flame is a spark of divine that burns in every heart. Please join me in reading our congregational covenant that's printed in your order of service. As a free congregation, we promise to one another our mutual trust and support. To create a beloved community, we promise to be kinder to each other than we have to be, to listen fully to each other with an open mind and heart, to speak responsibly and respectfully, to find ways to improve our church for all members and friends. Now, if you'd please rise as you're willing and able for our opening hymn. It is number 1000 in the teal hymnal, Morning Has Come.
Morning there we go. My name is Reverend Krista. I am the acting lead minister, and it's my great pleasure also to offer my personal welcome to Maxi Glamour. The way that I was introduced to Maxi Glamour is that I knew that I wanted to do a drag Sunday as long as it was still legal. Because the Missouri legislature is trying to make drag performance adult performance, which would mean that our children would not be able to be present in the sanctuary when Maxi performs. And so I called the St. Louis Public Library, and because I know they do a drag storytelling hour, and I said, who do you recommend? And Maxi Glamour is who they recommended. So that is how Maxi Glamour has come to us. And Maxi is going to do drag storytelling. So I invite our children to come forward for a time for all ages. You can sit on that chair.
This one?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Oh.
They're going to come forward and sit around you.
Oh, I love your outfit. I love your outfit. I love your outfit too. Oh, wow. Hi. Hello. All right, so I have 3 books. I'm going to need all of you to help me choose which book you think I should read first. The first one, this one is one of my favorites from when I was a kid. It's called The Monster at the End of This Book. Perfect for Halloween. And this one is book 2 called Dolls and Trucks Are for Everyone. And this one, it's a little newer book. I really love it. It's by Mo Willems. It's called Leonardo the Terrible Monster. And this is book 3. It's October, so I figured a little book about being scary might be good. So which one? Do you want book number 1 first, book number 2, or book number 3? Oh, you want 3? Okay, we only have time for 1 book, I was just told, just then. But reading is very important, so maybe you can ask your parents to read these other books to you at home. So this is the book we chose. It's called Leonardo the Terrible Monster. But before we do that, can I have all of you make the scariest, loudest, meanest monster voices that you can so we can scare some of those people making stupid bills away? On the count of 3, let me hear the loudest, scariest, most monstrous sounds you can. 1, 2, 3! All right, let's try that. One more time, but use the monstrous, scariest, loudest part of the inner of your body. 1, 2, 3! I think they heard that in Jefferson City. Without any further ado, this is Leonardo the Terrible Monster. Leonardo was a terrible monster. He couldn't scare anyone. He didn't have 1,642 teeth like Tony. That's actually not how many teeth he has. He wasn't big like Eleanor. And he wasn't just plain weird like Hector. Leonardo tried very hard to be scary, but he just wasn't. One day, Leonardo had an idea. He would find the most scaredy cat kid in the whole world and scare the tuna salad out of them. So Leonardo researched and researched and researched until he found the perfect candidate. Sam. Leonardo snuck up on the poor, unsuspecting boy, and the monster gave it all he could. That's what it says. Those are onomatopoeias. He did that until the little boy cried. Yes, cheered Leonardo. I did it. I finally scared the living tuna salad out of somebody. No, you didn't, snapped Sam. Oh, yeah, replied Leonardo. Then why are you crying? My mean big brother stole my action figure right out of my hands while I was still playing with it, and then he broke it on purpose. And it was my favorite toy, and I tried to fix it, but I couldn't, and I got so mad I kicked the table and stubbed my toe in the same foot I hurt last month when I accidentally slipped in the bathtub after I got soap in the eyes trying to wash off the bird poop that got my brother's cockatoo pooped on my head, and I don't have any friends, and my tummy hurts. I can relate. And that's why Sam was crying. Then Leonardo made a very big decision. Instead of being a terrible monster, he would become a wonderful friend. It's okay, said Sam. But that didn't mean that he couldn't try to scare his friends every now and then. The end.
Thank you so much. So now we're going to sing our children. I believe the youth are staying with us today. Let's sing our children to their classes. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. Our prayer this morning is by Sharon Wiley. It's called Wholeness. I would invite you to put yourself into a comfortable position, seated as you're able, feet grounded as you're able, or however you ground yourself. And if you wish, let's take 3 deep breaths. Spirit of life, we speak so often of brokenness in religious life. Let us speak today of wholeness. You are welcome here, all of you. Every part of you is beautiful, just the way you are. Here you do not need to be something more or something less. No holding back, no hiding, no exerting yourself, no trying to do more or be more. You have inherent worth and dignity. Nothing to prove here, nothing to prove to me or the person sitting next to you or to the children or anyone. You don't have to try and be witty or more quiet or more outgoing. You are beautiful. Every part of you beautiful, just the way you are. You do not need to change anything about yourself to be welcome here. Your skin, your hair, your belly, your limbs, your face, all beautiful, just the way you are. You are extraordinary, actually. Each and every one of you different from each and beautiful in your own beautiful way. Breathtaking. Let us enter into a time of silence for the deepest prayers and meditations in our hearts. Let us lift up the names of those we would hold in prayer. In the spirit of a love that is beyond our understanding, this we pray. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you to stay seated for our meditative hymn number 1053, How Could Anyone?
Every month, we choose a local organization with whom we will share half our offering. This month, we're supporting Migrant and Community Action Project, or MICA, whose central purpose is to ensure that immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers have legal representation. We know that our immigration system is challenging and often intentionally difficult to navigate. Good legal representation can make all the difference. Let us do our part to ensure that we welcome those who seek to build lives with us here. Let us be a generous congregation. join me in dedicating this offering? The words are in your order of service.
Our reading this morning is by Alok Vaid Menon, an acclaimed trans-feminine, gender non-conforming artist whose work reframes gender norms in fashion and beauty. I often hear from people that I'm just advancing a minority interest because, quote, the gender binary is working fine for everyone else except for non-binary people, unquote. And I'm incredulous. The gender binary is the reason why we have harmful and regressive gender norms. We are told that man and woman, and by extension, masculinity and femininity, have to be separate and oppositional. There's an antagonism written into it. When we say that masculinity is everything that is not feminine, we lead to the toxic gender norms which encourage and celebrate misogyny, homophobia, and violence as the predominant ways to signal masculinity. More broadly, this leads to incredible rates of domestic and all forms of violence. This leads to everyone being made to feel as if they aren't ever man enough or woman enough, like they are only worthy of love and consideration if they appeal to some arbitrary standard that has already been preset. People spend so much time trying to contour their lives into that standard that they're unable to accept themselves. This leads to bitterness and resentment, which leads back into this cycle of violence. Moving beyond the gender binary will create a world where people are just allowed to exist, where they have nothing to prove. And thus ends the reading. So we are pleased to have another performance by Maxi Glamour. Are we ready with the music, Ken? Have we figured it out? All right. We were having some technical issues this morning.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Not yet.
All right, so I had some backing music, but of course, in regular drag queen fashion, it didn't get here on time. So I will be playing a little bit on the piano and singing the song called Don't Worry. Yes. I'm not as good as your normal piano player, so lower the expectations. Baby, don't worry, I'll be with you through the night. Baby, don't worry, everything'll be alright. Baby, don't worry, I'll stay with you throughout the night. So baby, don't worry, everything'll be alright. yourself from the chains. Liberate your soul and you'll never be the same. Oh, don't worry. Don't worry.
Right. So this month our theme is heritage, and today's focus and angle on that theme is our LGBTQ heritage. Did you know that a Unitarian minister in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada was the first minister in North America to officiate a same-sex union in the 1970s? We were the first. In the 80s and 90s, when the AIDS epidemic was just hammering at the LGBT community, Unitarian churches were often the only church in town that would offer their space for a funeral or memorial, and often the only church in town that would recognize the chosen family of the deceased. We were also, Unitarian women were the first ones to launch that memorable lawsuit against the state of Massachusetts, which legalized same-sex marriage in that state. And the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, William Sinkford at that time, officiated their wedding. So we have been strong advocates for LGBTQ equality, and we also have a program called the Welcoming Congregation Program, which started in the 90s. Because we wanted to be welcoming of LGBTQ people, but you can't be welcoming if you don't know what you're doing. If you haven't taken the time to understand that experience and to also understand and explore your own internalized homophobia. So we did that program along with most of the congregations in the United States. But we did the L and the G really well. The B and the T, not so well. And now we have Q, which is questioning, I, which is intersex, A, which is asexual, and a plus for everything we've missed. Okay? We are now on the cusp where we are focusing on now in the Welcoming Congregation and in our congregations is inclusivity based on the spectrum of gendered experiences and gender expressions. And that's really what's at the cutting edge for us right now, which is why many of us are putting our pronouns on our name tags. There are stickers out there actually by your name tags that you can identify your pronouns, because this actually makes it much safer for people who are on a gender continuum to be here, because then they're not the only ones who have to identify their gender, right? It actually makes it safer. So we've come a long way, and we still have a long ways to go. And I'm so pleased that Maxi has come here, Maxi Glamour, to be my guest, and we're going to have a conversation about their life experience and what we can learn from that in our own practice as Unitarian Universalists. So come on up. All right. Welcome.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I didn't know you played piano.
Yeah, I didn't know I played piano either. I was like, well, there's no backing music, so we have to do something. And
well,
that's
awesome.
what happened.
So we've worked these questions out together, by the way, so there's no gotcha moments here. Just presuming, and you are actually with a bunch of people who are just meeting you for the first time, what are 3 things they would have to know about you to begin to understand who you are?
Oh, wow. 3 things. You did ask me these questions, and now I'm blanking. 3 things to know about me. I think it all comes into one. How does your identity come into it? And being black, being queer, being neurodiverse, being a person that has survived trauma. How is someone's life and their experiences that you haven't seen coming into that like room. And I guess, yeah, I'm a living person. Maybe that's what you should know. That's two. One last one. I really like baklava.
How did you get started performing? How did this happen?
Oh, wow. My mother wants to know the same thing. I remember as a kid, I always had like a love for like being on stage, and at 8 I started playing the flute, and then I was in punk bands in high school, and I really wanted to like create this like existence that kind of like combated the establishment through art, and being able to like have like artistic discourse through weirdness, and being able like within rock and roll, within stage, you can be as flamboyant as you wanted, and it was accepted. In the normal world it wasn't, and so I kind of wanted to like be a rock star, and now here I am.
What are some really important qualities someone needs to have to be a good drag performer?
Ooh, be a good drag performer. Well, good is really subjective.
This is true.
And so I think when it comes to aesthetics, I think authenticity is something that I really like advocate for. And so how are you authentically like finding inspiration, as opposed to just like being like socially coerced to like things that you're told to like? What is like authentically making you bright, as opposed to like what makes you want to fit in the crowd? And so I think when it comes to like any art form, what is like teleological you? What is like you at your core, and how does that come through the art, as opposed to like how are you trying to emulate the current trends or fads?
And what did you find in your core?
In my core, apple seeds. I think in my core, I found like a love for change. I think not just incremental change, but like radical like change that I can see within the existence of my life.
What did you struggle with? How did you struggle in coming into this place? What are some of the things you had to overcome?
Yeah. So I learned a lesson earlier this year. I was in Geneva at the United Nations studying like international queer policy and linguistics. And within that, I met some really amazing NGOs working on international queer liberation. And within that, they had this discussion about trauma related to advocacy work. And sometimes when we are like battling something that deeply affects us, we like psychologically can't have the full capacity that we want. So understanding the traumatic response to like this structural harm, and being able to heal yourself so that you can actually do the work. I think that's what I found out recently, and that's what I've been struggling to like understand. Is this affecting me on like a personal level or a communal level, and how has the personal been healed so I can help the community?
Thank you. How did you, I know every drag performer goes through kind of an inner journey as to who they want to present themselves as, and how did this happen for you?
So my drag character is like, I'm a demon. I really like fantasy. I really like anime. I really love like the monsters of religions, because I think when we think of like who is demonized sometimes in like literature of religion, is often like the religions of the people who have been conquered. And so when I think about being a person that is like fighting colonialism, I think about how marginalized people themselves are demonized. Like how are queer people demonized? How are black people, neurodiverse people? And so like my art form is kind of, I am a demon as a representation of how like marginalized people are demonized by society.
Thank you. I'm going to have to think about that for a while. So you may have already partially answered this, but if someone came to you and said, I want to be a drag performer, what would your advice be to them?
Are any of you wanting to be a drag performer out there? Okay. One, find yourself and find a budget. I think art is wonderful, and as artists, sometimes we work with what we have, and I think the more that you have, the more that you can do. And so resourcefulness is a wonderful thing, and applying resources so you can be more resourceful is a wonderful journey. That's probably like a very capitalistic response, but just if you have the resources to do drag, I think you have to kind of like, because it takes a lot of money to do the hair, the makeup, and all of these things. So I would say get a daytime job, get someone, a nice benefactor who helps support your habits, and find your own voice. Make sure that you can experiment with like your identity. For me, becoming a drag performer really helped me with like my gender identity, because if you're dressing up as a blue demon creature, like walking down the street, like dressing in a skirt with a little bit of eyeliner is just going to be no biggie. And so explore the boundaries of what gender can be, so that within your own life you can understand like the confines aren't as rigid as they appear. Does that work?
Does that work? So do you have a faith tradition or a spiritual practice that you have drawn on that sustains you in your life?
Yeah, so my whole life I've gone through many religions, many institutions. I was raised Catholic, Pentecostal, Baptist, and I'm Ashkenazi Jewish, so I went to temple. I practiced Hare Krishna for a while, pagan, Wicca. I really, as a philosophy major, I really love like looking at justice and like how like justice within different cultures means something different, and I really think that there's this essence of like truth in all religions, that like there's these parallels of like similar like allegories and parables, and so that's a very long-winded answer of maybe.
Does this sound familiar? We're similar. We're very similar. So we all have multiple identities like age, race, financial status, physical ability, and there is so much in that matrix of identity. How do your identities interlock, and why is it important to understand that all our identities interlock together in a multidimensional way?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's because you wrote it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm really into social stratification, and it's just like, where is our position in society, and where do our powers lie? You know, when we look at misogyny, like how is misogyny connected with racism, and how is, you know, misogyny, racism connected with like neurotypicality and like ableism? And so when we're entering these spaces, like, is it wheelchair accessible? Like, are there, well, I guess we should have sign language here as well. That's, you know, where are the gaps that we're missing, and how do our power in society, like our positionality, make us ignorant sometimes of like what other people are going through, their experiences. One thing like about like Black people is that there's race and like socioeconomic status are like always interconnected, but then when there's other things that are connected to that, with like healthcare, with education, with, you know, living conditions. And so when we're looking at how our identities are interlocking, how are our powers, how are our like positions in this social stratification making us look down on others? So when we're advocating for like queer liberation and like poor communities, how are we looking down on these people for being backwards, as opposed to like uplifting them, understanding like their own experiences to get them to where they are? And I think it's really important for us to, we are all like oppressed in some ways. At the same time, we are all as well like the oppressors. And so how can we understand like that matrix and not just simplify it in this reductive analysis of like, I'm oppressed, but we are all collectively perpetuating oppression. Does that work for that one?
Does that work? Yes. I love how you explain things. I love how you interlock it. It's so visual. I could imagine it in my mind, how all those forces came together in each one of us. I really appreciate that.
Now I'm thinking about what you're thinking about, what I'm thinking about.
And I'm thinking what you're thinking about, what I'm thinking about, what you're thinking about.
Is this romance?
What would you say to young people who are wondering if they are genderqueer, trans, non-binary, or gender non-conforming, who are trying to figure out how they can live into the truth of who they are or think they might be?
Yeah, I've never been there. Yeah, I think the thing about truth is that we have this idea that truth is a static thing, you know, it's just like this thing that doesn't like move. But when it comes to our identities aren't static. As we grow, we like different things, we become different. And so I think this might be a little controversial, but I think it's a phase. I think we're all going through phases and accept whatever phase that you're going through as like a valid truth to get to the next truth, or a truth that like stays there forever. And so I think with a person like contemplating, oh, am I this? Or am I that? Yes, you could be, but you could also not be. You could be lesbian tomorrow, then realize you're asexual for 13 years, and then go back to liking boys. I think we have this like anxiety that we're like, there's this essentialism with gender identity and orientation, but like gender orientation they're living things, just like language, just like the truth, just like community. And so just kind of alleviate yourself from the anxiety of like this being this thing that you can't escape from, or a thing that you're like bound to being. Like once you come out, I can't be something else. But you can come out again and again and again and again, just constantly reinventing yourself. Did that work?
They're all working. Well, and the thing is that in Unitarian Universalism, we have a deep reverencing of our own internal truths, and we ask ourselves to look deep inside and to listen to what our self is telling ourself, and to trust it. So what you shared is a really great example of how that can work. And I really like the freedom you offer in having an identity that is fluid, that we don't have to define ourselves just by who we were in the past, or who we are now, or what we think we might be in the future, that we don't need to be locked in. I know that as human beings, we often do want to lock each other in so we can understand each other, and it can be a real challenge, both inside ourselves and with others, to see that change. But we ask ourselves to be present to it, to reverence it, to accept it as a manifestation of the holy. And that's what I see you talking about in that answer. It's how do we manifest the sacred in ourselves and in relationship with each other in a way that reverences all of life.
I love the way you summed that up. That was good.
Thank you. Did that work? Okay. So on to maybe more of a difficult topic. It can be really hard to be liberal or progressive in Missouri right now. There is so much to be sad about, and there's so much to be angry about. And one of the things that I know I personally am very sad and angry about is that our state government has gone to war against gender nonconforming people. It is virtually impossible to get gender-affirming care. Last year, they tried to identify drag performance as adult entertainment under the guise of protecting children. So if that bill had passed, we would be breaking the law by doing this service. We might be able to get away with it as freedom of religious expression, but it would probably drag us into the courts if that had actually happened last year. And what I really am frustrated and angry about, and many of us as well, is that it seems to be like children who are identifying in a gender nonconforming way are being used as political pawns, and that they are actually being abused by their government in order to further a political agenda of retrenching a form of conservatism that really never was. And so my question here is, for you personally, in this context, how has it been for you to live here, and what actions or relationships or resources are you connecting to through this very difficult time?
Yeah. Missouri can be an interesting place when it comes to policy. We used to be a very purple place, very union-led Democrat state. I think that on a level, I think that unfortunately, as a so-called progressive, I think that the Progressive Party kind of has alienated people of like socioeconomic brackets in rural communities. And this disconnect creates this hierarchy that we were talking about before, where there's this like hyper-intellectualism of like calling people backwards and calling people stupid and calling people like cousin lovers. And while in reality there might be like validity to these stereotypes, I think that power structure creates this rebellion. So this information of like progressive ideologies of like just love queer people is not being actually understood. So this information is being intercepted by this like diametrically opposed ideologies in the state. And so I think unfortunately, if you go to college and you're college educated, you have a higher percentage of being a Democrat because you understand situations. And within that, where is the class issue? Where is the situation in which poor rural white people don't have the ability to understand Judith Butler, bell hooks, or any of these theories that have a better analysis outside of their communities? There was a recent study that talked about progressive theories within rural communities, and abstract theories aren't really palatable because they're looking at their everyday. They're looking at their jobs being gone. They're looking at not having health care. They're looking at meth overdoses. And so when these things haven't been met, their needs aren't met, and they're still struggling, how are they going to have the capacity to look at like hyper-intellectualism of a party that has neglected them? And so I think while it is important to say, yes, the Conservative Party needs to come to today's day and age, I think it is also like a necessity of the progressive agenda to make sure that those that have been left behind aren't continuously left behind, and how are rural voices and rural progressives left out of the conversation because of this hyper-intellectual, like classist, like neoliberal agenda that is sometimes racist, sometimes anti-rural, sometimes it perpetuates the same things that it fights. That's my perspective. I don't know.
I appreciate the calling in you just did. This is a calling in for us. When we were preparing for this, you spoke to me about some of the work that you've done in Jeff City, that you were instrumental, or you played a part in preventing the legislation that would have deemed drag performances adult entertainment. You had a hand in making sure that didn't pass, and I would love if you'd be willing to share a story about what were your talking points, what were your narrative, how did you frame this in order to get the results that we saw?
Yeah, so a lot of my work is done through this like concept of like communicative action and communicative rationale of like how can we use discourse as a way to understand ethics of two different parties. And so they introduced policy on banning drag performances in the state of Missouri. And Promo Missouri, which is the lobbying group for queer rights in Missouri, they contacted me and was like, hey, come down, we would like for you to talk. You're into policy and you're queer, we need you. And, well, they don't really need me, but they asked me to come. And so I came in drag and I gave them a testimony. I was like, hey, so you're creating this policy that is going to ban drag. You know, my work is I read to children, I give presentations, I perform music, I do festivals. Like, this is my full-time job. I bought a house with this. I've traveled the world with this. You know, I've been published in several things. Like, you're going to say that this is just some reductive, sexualized, like, performance of gender. I think you're, like, ignorant. And that's what I told them. And I made fun of the person's hair, too, because it was really bad. On a side note, if you're gonna make like really bad, mean, hateful policy, you should have at least good hair. Like, come on. And so, yeah, I, along with 3 other drag queens, we went to Jefferson City and we spoke out and we gave the reasons why they shouldn't pass these bills. And it was a very interesting situation. One of the Republicans came up and took a picture with us, and another one was a gay Republican, and we were like, why did you do this? Self-harm. We won't talk about that today, but later. And yeah, I went there and I talked to them, and it didn't pass, and yeah, that was the thing.
So we're coming to the end of our time, and so my last question is, what are your dreams?
My dreams. Not nightmares, right?
That's right, not nightmares.
Okay. My dreams. Well, right now I'm starting an NGO that's focusing on advocacy work that is based on qualitative analysis of society. So basically, I'm trying to create a collective of activists to do qualitative research of policy-oriented situations in Missouri, so that when we're doing advocacy work like campaigning and canvassing and information dissemination, we can understand the complexity of people's wants and desires, as opposed to imposing this paternalistic, I know what you need, so I'm going to tell you what you need, and kind of combat that with what do you need, how are your needs not met, how is the government failing you, how is your community failing you, what roles you want to play. That is a recent goal, and then maybe apply to get a PhD. That's currently what I'm also doing, and yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. We've learned a lot from being with you, and thank you for your generosity of spirit in coming here this morning.
Thank you.
Don't know what number that is, but it's in your order of service. 1028, the fire of commitment. That's wonderful. So can you do a flute, please, at the end? Okay. Okay, I'm sorry about that. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And please be seated for one final musical gift from Maxi Glamour.
I have a question for you. Can you play that?
Thank you again for being here. Thank you all for being here this morning. Blessings on you all, and see you next week. Go in peace.